to speak on the Israeli assault on Gaza is former CIA officer Dr. Charles Cogan. Thank you very much for being with us here on RT.
Happy to be here.
Now, Hamas says that it has captured an Israeli soldier. The IDF, of course, has denied that these claims. We don't know what the truth is at this point. If it does turn out to be true, how much of an impact would that have on the ongoing fighting?
Well, I think it would have a considerable impact considering what happened in the case of Gilad Shalit. They released, finally, after 5 years, 1,000 Hamas prisoners in exchange for Gilad Shalit. I mean, Israel looks after its beleaguered citizens. There's no question about that.
So we all have embarrassing moments, or at least politicians tend to have them. John Kerry, the U.S. Secretary of State, was recently caught off mic talking about the Israeli tactics in Gaza. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It's a hell of a pinpoint operation. It's a hell of a pinpoint operation.
Right. It's escalating really, significantly, and it just underscores the need for ceasefire.
We've got to get over there.
Yep.
Thank you, John. I think, John, we ought to go tonight. I think it's crazy to be sitting around.
Now, it seems he's pretty frustrated and wanting to get involved somehow. Can we expect that to turn into some type of a concrete action?
Well, let me say at the outset that the balance sheet is terrible. I mean, almost 500, going on 500 Palestinian deaths, and until today, 2 Israeli deaths. Now there are more, and we have 13 IDF soldiers killed. But the problem, I think, is that the peace process has been halted. I think that if the peace process were going on instead of having been cut off by Netanyahu in April, there might have been a chance to at least arrive at some détente or some agreement with Hamas. And, you know, there's been negotiation before between the U.S. and Hamas. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, you mentioned this balance sheet being off balance. Hospitals, schools, and media offices, they've all been hit in this offensive, targets from Israel. Is there any justification if Israel is aiming at Hamas militants? Why are these soft targets being hit?
Well, as a matter of fact, there's more justification for Israel this time than in the previous skirmishes with Gaza, because the Hamas rockets keep coming, and there's no let up in them, and there's been a tremendous number of rockets launched. Very, very few casualties, I think 2. But it has created an atmosphere of fear, not only in southern Israel, but in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So Israel has, shall we say, slightly more justification. Hamas has some legitimate grievances. There's the Israeli blockade, the prisoners. My own personal opinion, and I've stated this elsewhere, is that there's not going to be peace as long as Netanyahu is prime minister. He doesn't want it. And with all the efforts of Kerry, which were highly laudable, it was Netanyahu who broke the talks off after Israel refused to release the final tranche of Palestinian prisoners back in April.
Do you think that Israel is doing enough to try and prevent civilian casualties? Are they doing everything that they can to keep civilians from dying?
Well, I think they're trying to, but it's very difficult because these neighborhoods are very crowded, and there are launching sites within the neighborhoods. There are stray actions that go wrong, like the killing of the 4 Palestinian teenagers or youths on the beach last Wednesday. But I think the IDF does make an effort. They send out warnings, but it's a very, very messy situation, and it must stop. Maybe Kerry can do something, and he's going out to the Middle East, I think, imminently, to Cairo, and Ban Ki-moon is going out there. It's gotten way out of hand, and as Kerry said quite accurately, it's a hell of a pinpoint operation.
Indeed. Interesting to hear your thoughts. Dr. Charles Cogan, former CIA officer, thanks for being with us here on RT International.
It's a pleasure.